Bitcoin is knocking on $70,000 right now.
Oh, yeah. The financial headlines are just glowing today.
Right. They really are. And I mean, if you look at social media, traders are practically taking victory laps.
Totally. But, if you look closely at the underlying data.
The smartest money in the room is quietly sprinting for the exits.
Exactly. They are out of there.
So, welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is to really cut through the noise of this incredibly weird financial landscape we're in.
And it is definitely a weird one.
It is. We are pulling from a massive stack of sources from today, April 6, 2026. So we've got crypto newsletters, macroeconomic reports, and deep analyses from top market influencers.
Yeah, a lot to cover.
For sure. And the goal for you, the listener, is to figure out the answer to one big question. Is this current market calm a launch pad for a massive bull run? Or is it basically a trapdoor waiting to spring open?
Because that tension, it is everywhere in the research today. If you're just glancing at your portfolio app, things feel really optimistic. But beneath that surface layer, there is this generational tug of war happening.
Right, like massive structural changes.
Exactly. We're tracking quantum computing breakthroughs, AI fundamentally breaking traditional software models, and TradFi, traditional finance, just hardwiring itself into crypto.
These forces are actively rewiring the global economy.
Yeah, but everyone is completely distracted by the shiny price tickers on their screens.
Okay, let's unpack this, because there is a really stark contrast between those flashy headlines and the underlying data that actually moves the needle.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's start with this $70,000 Bitcoin mirage. Our sources note that crypto kicked off the week looking incredibly strong, right? Pushing up toward that 70K mark.
Yep.
And the catalyst was supposedly reports of potential U.S.-Iran ceasefire talks. But I have a hard time believing global geopolitics directly translates to retail investors suddenly deciding to buy Bitcoin on a Tuesday.
Yeah, you're right to be skeptical because it really wasn't organic buying. To understand that price spike, we have to look at the actual mechanics of the trading engines. When that geopolitical news broke, it triggered a massive short squeeze.
Like how massive?
Over $270 million in short positions were liquidated almost instantly.
Oh, wow. So wait, break down that mechanism for someone who, isn't staring at exchange order books all day. What actually happens in a short liquidation?
Sure. So when a trader shorts an asset, they're borrowing it and selling it, basically betting the price will go down so they can buy it back cheaper later.
Right, making profit on the drop.
Exactly. But if the price suddenly ticks up instead, like on a rumor of a ceasefire, the exchange's algorithm realizes that trader might not have enough collateral to cover their bet.
So the system just steps in.
Right. The exchange forcefully closes the position. And to close a short, the system automatically buys the asset at market price.
I see. So that $270 million wasn't a wave of optimistic long-term investors entering the market.
No, not at all.
It was an automated forced buying frenzy. The exchanges were basically buying Bitcoin on behalf of traders who were betting against it.
Yep, which just acts like an artificial accelerant. It's pouring gas on a tiny spark.
Right.
And that is the mechanical reality. Once that artificial fuel burns off, you're left with the actual market structure.
Which our newsletter data shows is incredibly choppy.
Very choppy. We are in what analysts call a range-bound environment. The flows into Bitcoin ETFs are completely flat right now.
And we're staring down the barrel of massive macroeconomic data this week. US PCE drops on Thursday and the CPI on Friday.
Right, the heavy hitter inflation metrics.
The ones the Federal Reserve uses to decide whether to print money or burn it. Which leads us to a fascinating piece of analysis from Benjamin Cowan in today's stack.
Oh yeah, Cowan's report is crucial here.
He's looking at this exact setup and warning that this perceived stability we're feeling is actually a massive red flag. He uses the word complacency.
Yeah.
But I look at the market and I don't see people being lazy. I see people buying. Why is he calling it complacent?
Because investors are ignoring the structural decay happening right underneath them.
Like what?
Well, Cowan points out that the market is blind to this toxic cocktail of indicators. You've got incredibly tight market liquidity, deteriorating labor data, sticky inflation.
Oh, and rising oil prices, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Mostly rising oil prices.
Yeah.
Historically, when you have rising energy costs, squeezing consumer wallets at the exact same time liquidity is drying up.
That's bad.
It is the classic signature of the end of a business cycle.
It makes me think of like a cartoon character who has run off a cliff but hasn't looked down yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like an airplane trying to climb into the stratosphere. The passengers look out the window, the nose is pointed up, they see the altimeter rising towards 70,000, and they feel great.
Right.
But the pilot knows the air is getting too thin, the engines are being starved of oxygen, the plane is technically still going up, but a stall is mathematically inevitable.
What's fascinating here is how the market structure has already shifted to reflect that stalling engine, even if retail investors haven't noticed yet.
Okay, how so?
Cowen's data shows a really clear pivot. Earlier in this market cycle, the mechanical pattern was dips, followed by strong breakouts.
Right, you buy the dip and the momentum carries you to new all-time highs.
Exactly. But recently, the structure has mutated. Now it's drops followed by weak recoveries. We're carving out lower highs.
And the psychology behind that is dangerous, right? Because if the market just crashed 20% in a day, people would panic and act defensively.
Yeah, they protect their capital.
But a slow, grinding, weak recovery breeds hope. It tricks you into thinking the worst is over.
It creates a completely false sense of security. And while the retail crowd is holding on to that hope, the institutional capital is quietly moving down the risk curve.
They're leaving.
Yeah. Whenever liquidity tightens, the smart money always retreats to safety in a very specific sequence. First, you see the highly speculative, smaller altcoins start to bleed out.
Makes it.
Then that weakness bleeds into Bitcoin. And finally, it hits the traditional stock market. So that 70K headline is really just a facade hiding the fact that capital is actively evacuating their riskiest assets.
Which makes our next set of sources completely baffling to me. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
If the macro environment is an airplane about to stall and institutional capital is retreating, why is traditional finance diving headfirst into crypto right now?
It's the ultimate paradox.
Right. We have a report today that Charles Schwab, one of the most conservative legacy financial giants on the planet, is opening a wait list for direct Bitcoin and Ethereum trading.
With a phased rollout starting in 2026.
Yeah. But in the exact same stack of sources, we have this blistering warning from the International Monetary Fund.
The IMF paper.
The IMF just released a paper stating that the very nature of tokenized finance, the instant settlement that crypto is built on, could violently amplify global market crises.
It's a huge clash of ideas.
Wait, I have to stop you there. For the last 15 years, the entire pitch of blockchain has been speed and efficiency. Instant, frictionless transactions without middlemen.
Right. That's always been the dream.
Why is the IMF suddenly looking at faster settlement times and calling it a systemic threat?
To understand the IMF's panic, you have to look at the hidden mechanics of a traditional market crash. In legacy finance, when massive panic sets in, the system doesn't break instantly.
Because it takes days to settle trades.
Exactly. It has built-in settlement delays, the T+1 or T+2 windows. When you sell a stock, the actual cash and the asset take a day or two to officially change hands behind the scenes.
And as a consumer, I hate that. It's incredibly frustrating when I want to move my money and I have to wait 3 business days for funds to clear.
Oh, it's super frustrating for you. But for a global regulator, that friction is the only thing keeping the financial world from burning down.
Wait, really?
Yeah, think of those settlement delays like the crumple zones on a car. They are designed to slow down the impact of a crash.
Oh, wow. I never thought of it like that.
In a financial panic, that 2-day delay gives the central banks time to step in, assess the systemic damage, inject emergency liquidity, and basically stop a localized panic from becoming a global contagion.
Oh, man. So then apply tokenization to that scenario.
Right. On a blockchain, settlement is instantaneous and final. There are no crumple zones. If a panic starts, billions of dollars of assets move at the speed of light.
It's just gone.
Yeah. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the IMF realizes that an algorithmic flash crash on a tokenized market would outpace any human regulator's ability to intervene.
The damage would be done and the ledgers finalized before the Federal Reserve even had time to convene a meeting.
Exactly.
So Schwab is out here laying down high-speed fiber optic cables for institutional money while the IMF is screaming that we are removing the brakes from the car.
We are stripping away the friction that saves us.
That is wild. And, if we're talking about removing safety nets, we have to look at the next layer of vulnerabilities in our research today.
Oh, the security stuff.
Yeah, because if the system is moving at the speed of light, the deepest risks aren't just market mechanics anymore. They are human manipulation and future tech. Let's look at the Drift protocol exploit.
The $280 million drain.
Right. Now, if you are listening to this and you hear crypto hack, you probably imagine some genius coder in a dark room finding a mathematical flaw in a smart contract.
It's a Matrix movie or something.
Exactly. But that is not what happened to Drift. The sources show this was tied to North Korean social engineering. There was no magical code backdoor.
None at all.
It was a 6-month psychological infiltration campaign using incredibly elaborate fake identities.
And that fundamentally shifts how we have to think about security in this space. I mean, the industry is obsessed with code audits.
We spend millions proving that cryptography is mathematically flawless.
Right, but the attackers have realized they don't need to break the math. They just need to break the human.
It's so much easier.
It is. These state-sponsored groups are creating fake LinkedIn profiles, passing technical interviews, getting hired as remote developers, and spending months building trust with the core team.
Just acting like normal coworkers.
Exactly. They review code together. They joke in the company chat.
And then 6 months later, when they are trusted with the admin keys to push a network update,
they drain $280 million in a single keystroke.
It is chilling. Because you cannot write a software patch for human empathy. You can't audit trust.
No, you really can't.
But, while we are dealing with human vulnerabilities today, our sources highlight a massive technological threat looming tomorrow.
Quantum computing.
Yes. The sentiment reports indicate this is moving out of university physics labs and into concrete corporate planning.
And for listeners who haven't dived into the deep tech side of this, quantum computers don't just process things faster, they process things differently.
How so?
A classical computer guesses a password by trying one combination after another, sequentially.
Like trying every key on a keychain.
Right. But a quantum computer uses quantum mechanics to look at a vast number of combinations simultaneously.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And because of an algorithm called Shor's algorithm, they are theoretically capable of instantly shattering the specific type of encryption that secures almost every blockchain, bank account, and secure message on Earth.
Instantly. Which brings us to a major move by Circle, the company behind the USDC stablecoin.
Yes, the ARC project.
According to the deep dive research, they aren't waiting around to see if quantum computers get built. They are currently building this thing called ARC. It's a layer 1 blockchain, meaning it's the base level foundational highway, and it is EVM compatible.
And that EVM compatibility is crucial. EVM stands for Ethereum Virtual Machine. It basically means developers don't have to learn a bizarre new coding language to build on ARC.
They can just use the Ethereum tools they already know.
Exactly. But the catch is that ARC is being designed from the ground up for post-quantum migration.
Yeah, read through the rollout plan. And they are attacking the architecture in phases. Phase 1 is wallets, basically changing the digital locks so users can opt into post-quantum signatures.
Right.
Phase 2 is encrypting private data on the chain to prevent plain text exposure. And then phases 3 and 4 involve completely overhauling the back-end infrastructure and network validators.
It's a massive undertaking.
It is. So I have to play devil's advocate here. I mean, think of it like building a house with a reinforced titanium foundation. Is this threat really imminent? Or is Circle spending tens of millions of dollars over-engineering a titanium bunker for a problem that might be 15 years away?
This raises an important question about the nature of data itself. You hear security experts talk about harvest now, decrypt later attacks.
What does that mean?
Bad actors are currently scraping and storing massive amounts of encrypted data that they cannot read today, but they are hoarding it.
Waiting for the day a quantum computer comes online.
Exactly. So if you send a secure transaction today, it's safe now, but someone is recording it to break it open in a decade.
Man. So Circle's philosophy is basically, if you are managing long-lived assets like generational wealth, digital identities, or stablecoins that run global commerce, waiting until the quantum threat is obvious means you have already lost.
Right. The moment a viable quantum computer boots up, any exposed legacy blockchain will be drained before the developers can even draft a crisis response.
So it's mathematically less risky to execute a complex, expensive network upgrade right now in peacetime than to try and retrofit the system while a world-ending hack is actively in progress.
Exactly. And we see other projects attempting to balance this too. Like OpenWallet, they're focusing heavily right now on blending advanced security with multi-chain usability.
It's a brutal balancing act for the industry. I mean, we have Schwab speeding up institutional money, the IMF terrified of instant crashes, North Korean hackers weaponizing human trust, and quantum computers threatening the math that holds it all together.
It is a lot to take in.
So what does this all mean? If you were a listener trying to navigate this landscape, looking at your retirement accounts or your crypto portfolio, how do you actually thrive when the structural risks are this complex?
Well, our sources provide two incredibly different playbooks for the wealth transfer happening right now, and the contrast between them is really illuminating.
Oh, the solo miner story.
Uh,
I loved this piece today. So the headlines this morning show that a solo Bitcoin miner, just one person running a rig beat, 1 in 28,000 odds to process a Bitcoin block,
yep.
and they walked away with a reward of $210,000.
Which is the pure definition of a lottery ticket. To contextualize how absurd that is, the Bitcoin network is secured by massive, publicly traded corporations running football field-sized warehouses filled with specialized computers.
Yeah, industrial scale.
Right. So for a single machine at home to guess the right cryptographic hash is a massive statistical anomaly.
It's insane luck.
And the dark irony here is that while this one solo miner got incredibly lucky, the underlying data shows those massive mining corporations are actively selling off their Bitcoin reserves right now just to cover their operating costs.
Right. You cannot base a financial strategy on hoping to get struck by lightning while the professionals are actively cashing out.
No, definitely not.
Which brings us to the methodical alternative. Our sources feature this extensive analysis from market influencer Brian Young on the artificial intelligence wealth transfer. And Young makes a fascinating comparison.
The 2020 parallel.
Yeah, he says April 2026 feels exactly like early 2020.
That parallel is vital to understand. In early 2020, massive systemic shifts were quietly happening on a global scale, but the broader public largely ignored the financial implications until the market had already moved.
They were distracted.
Exactly. And Young's core thesis is that the market is finally waking up to the fact that AI is not a chatbot. It's not a helpful sidekick. It is actively and natively dismantling the traditional software as a service, or SaaS, business model.
Break down the mechanics of that disruption, because he points to recent drops in major software stocks as proof. Why is AI killing traditional SaaS?
Think about what traditional software does. You buy a subscription to a platform, let's say an inventory management system or bookkeeping software.
Okay.
That software gives you a dashboard with buttons, and you hire a human to click those buttons and organize your data.
Right. The software is just a tool for the human to use.
But an AI agent doesn't need a dashboard. It doesn't need a user interface with drop-down menus. You just point the AI at your raw data, and it does the bookkeeping natively.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the traditional software company whose entire business model relies on selling you that dashboard suddenly finds their core product completely obsolete.
Because AI isn't just making software companies more efficient. It's replacing their product entirely.
Exactly.
So how does an investor navigate that without getting wiped out trying to guess which AI startup will be the next monopoly?
Young advocates for the classic picks and shovel strategy.
Right, like during the gold rush, the people who consistently built wealth weren't the prospectors desperately panning for gold in the river. It was the merchants selling them the pickaxes, the tents, and the blue jeans.
Yes. Young applies that exact framework to the AI revolution. You don't try to guess which specific AI app will win. You buy the foundational infrastructure that every single AI company requires to exist.
So what does that look like today?
Well, first you have the mega cap tech companies building the foundational models and the cloud infrastructure, the Amazons, Metas, and Teslas.
Okay.
Second, you look at the physical hardware constraint. AI requires hyper-advanced microchips, enormous memory capacity, and vast data centers.
And that leads to the third, and I think most critical piece of Young's strategy, which seems completely overlooked by the mainstream, energy, specifically nuclear power.
Oh, absolutely.
If you want to know what AI runs on, it's not code, it's megawatts.
The energy consumption of an AI data center compared to a traditional cloud server is staggering. And these facilities require reliable 24/7 baseload power.
Right, they cannot afford to power down when the wind stops blowing or the sun sets.
Exactly.
Wind and solar are great, but they are intermittent. The only carbon-free energy source capable of delivering that kind of continuous massive scale is nuclear. The companies building small modular reactors and upgrading the electrical grid are the actual hidden backbone of the artificial intelligence boom.
Yeah. And beyond capital allocation, Young really emphasizes the personal wealth transfer.
What do you mean by that?
The most asymmetric investment you can make is integrating these tools into your daily workflow. The smart money isn't just buying Nvidia or nuclear stocks. They are using AI to fundamentally leverage their own time, while the average person still views it as a novelty.
That makes total sense. Let's bring all this together because we have covered incredible ground today.
We really have.
The mission was to figure out if this $70,000 market calm is a launchpad or a trapdoor. And what the sources show is that the surface calm is entirely deceptive. We have an airplane stalling out on macro complacency. We have Charles Schwab and the legacy financial world hooking up high-speed pipes to crypto, right as the IMF warns that tokenization has removed the financial crumple zones that save us from systemic crashes.
Right. And we explored how the concept of security is just mutating.
Yeah, a flawless smart contract means nothing if North Korean hackers can spend 6 months socially engineering a developer into handing over the keys.
Exactly. And we saw how companies like Circle are preemptively rebuilding the very foundations of the blockchain to survive the mathematical apocalypse of quantum computing.
And finally, we looked at how to survive the AI wealth transfer by ignoring the lottery tickets and focusing on the unglamorous picks and shovels, the hardware, the data centers, and the massive nuclear energy grid required to power the future.
It is a staggering amount of change happening quietly behind the headlines.
It really is.
And I want to leave you, the listener, with one final thought to mull over as you navigate all of this. If you look at the through line of everything we discussed today, AI is rapidly accelerating how we think and work. Quantum computing is accelerating how we secure and process data. Tokenized blockchains are accelerating how our money moves.
Everything is getting faster.
Everything is moving toward a frictionless, instantaneous reality. But as we saw with the IMF's warning about market crashes and the drift hack where a human was manipulated over 6 months, what ultimately happens to our humanity in this system?
Wow.
If absolute speed causes catastrophic crashes and human empathy can be weaponized to steal hundreds of millions of dollars, will our incredibly advanced frictionless future eventually require us to build artificial friction?
That's a crazy thought.
Will we have to program deliberate delays, algorithmic speed bumps, and AI-enforced cooling off periods just to protect us from our own human nature?
Wow. When the system removes all the brakes, we might have to invent artificial ones just to survive the ride.
That is a brilliant and honestly mildly terrifying question to end on.
Yeah, something to think about, for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking past the headlines, keep questioning the calm, and we'll see you next time.